So I want to thank the New Year Committee to have the honor and privilege to be able to come and speak on behalf of all of us today. And so the New Year Committee has asked me to come and really inspire the Hmong people in our audience today with my message. And so for this reason, my message is going to be mainly in English because the younger generation cannot understand Hmong all that well anymore. So my story starts off with my parents being born in Laos, and so before I was born, I had 3 older siblings that had all passed away due to disease, starvation, and malnutrition. So the Hmong people grew up in Laos. It was just a poverty-stricken place, and so because of this, my siblings ended up passing away. My parents knew that they had to get themselves into Thailand, and so while my parents were running through the jungles of Laos, my mom was actually pregnant with me. And so if my mom would have taken a bullet, I would not be here today. So thankfully, my parents were able to escape safely into Thailand, and it was in Ban Vinai refugee camp where a lot of us younger Hmong generation, we were born. And so I just remember how poor of a place this was. We never had enough food, we never had enough medicine, we never had enough clothing. And so this was a place that was just very poverty-stricken, and I just remember just not growing up in the best environment. And so in 1987, my family was finally granted permission to come to the United States, and of all the communities that we came to live in, it was in Merrill, Wisconsin that we came to live. And so it was during that time there were only 3 or 4 Hmong families living in Merrill. And a year later, my family decided that Wausau would be the place that we would call home, because it was here in Wausau that we have a larger Hmong population already. And so I came into the Wausau School District. I went to Lincoln Elementary School, and eventually I graduated from Wausau West in the class of 2000. But while I was still going to school, there were some very influential people in my life. These happened to be educators. And so I remember my ESL teacher, she recognized how poor my family was. And I don't know why she had chosen our family, but she knew that we weren't given many opportunities. We didn't get to go to McDonald's like the other kids. We didn't get to experience this true American experience. And so one Christmas, she invited our family to go to her house. And for the first time in my life, I remember opening up Christmas presents that had my name on there. Never before did I have this experience. And so it was so wonderful getting to meet kind Americans. And it didn't matter your skin color, but they were willing to just love you and care for you. And so she instilled this love of all people to me at a young age. And she continued to take me to these experiences that would help me to understand what it meant to be American. We went camping, we went boating. My parents could afford to do that. And so she was able to do that for us. So in 2000, I graduated from Wausau West. It was also during that same year that I ended up getting married to my wife. And that fall, I ended up going to UW-Stevens Point. I wanted to study television broadcasting. My goal during 2000 was to become the next Connie Chung. That's what I wanted to aspire to be. I wanted to be the Hmong version of Connie Chung. And so I went to UW-Stevens Point for that reason. A year later, September 11th happened, and that really just changed me as a Hmong American. And the reason why is because I felt that the attacks against our nation in Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania, and also in New York was an attack against the freedom that all of us as Americans knew. And so how dare these terrorists would come to the United States thinking that there are not good, kind Americans, because I grew up knowing that there were kind, great Americans. So I felt a personal obligation to do something to make my country safer. And so in 2002, I greatly considered joining up for the military. I wanted to join the Army. And during that time, I went and talked to my friends and my family who were Hmong, and they said to me, Yauo, you are not an American citizen. You're just legally here. This war does not belong to you. Let them fight their war. You are just a legal resident of this country. And I said, my patriotism is not based on a piece of paper. My patriotism is based on what is in my heart. And in my heart, I consider myself to be an American. So this is the right American thing to do to protect our country. So in 2002, I raised my right hand for Uncle Sam. And so I joined the Wisconsin National Guard. In 2003, I went to boot camp down in Fort Benning, Georgia. They asked me, what did I want to be now that I'm in the Army? And I said, well, I just want to be a person carrying a gun because that's what soldiers do. And so that's what I did down in Fort Benning, Georgia for 3.5 months. And I realized when I went to Fort Benning that I was the shortest soldier of that time. I was the shortest one, I was the smallest one, but it doesn't matter how big you are. What truly matters is the fight that you have in your heart. And I told myself that regardless of how difficult this experience was going to be, I was never going to give up. And so 3.5 months later, I graduated from boot camp. I came back to Stevens Point thinking that I was just going to be a weekend warrior for the Wisconsin National Guard. During the spring of 2004, we received our activation orders to go and support Operation Iraqi Freedom. They then shipped us down to Camp Shelby, Mississippi for a 6 months train-up before we deployed to Iraq. On Thanksgiving's Day of 2004, I was boots in the ground in the country of Kuwait. Never before had I left the country. And it was during this time that the American government said to me, we are going to give you an all-expense paid trip to the Middle East. And so a few weeks later, we found ourselves in Iraq. The city that we were stationed in for a whole year was Samarra, Iraq. Saddam Hussein was captured 15 minutes away from where we slept. The insurgents in that community hated us. They wanted nothing to do with Americans in their country. On December 26th of 2004, we were on a routine night mission to make sure that the insurgents were not going to put bombs or IEDs in the middle of the road, unbeknownst to us. There was one. Staff Sergeant Todd Olson was the #1 man in the formation. There was another sergeant that was #2, and I was #3 from the front. When we got close enough to the IED, we didn't know it, they detonated, the bomb went off. Staff Sergeant Todd Olson was the 2nd Wisconsin National Guardsman to die in Iraq, just a few yards from where I was. That was a life-changing experience. When you are 24, you think you are going to live forever. But I quickly realized that our time here on earth, we don't know when our time is going to come up. And so because of this, I realized that in combat, anybody can go at any moment. A few months later, we ended up losing another soldier. So I looked to my right, that soldier's dead. I looked to my right, that soldier's dead. I looked to my left, and that soldier's dead. I realized that sooner or later, somebody's number is also going to be up. I did not want to be that person that was going to die in Iraq. I wanted to come back to Wausau. So in desperation, I made a deal with God. And I said, God, if you will get me out of Iraq alive, when I come back to good old Wausau, whatever you want me to do, I will do it for you. You have just got to get me out of this place alive and in one piece. By the end of 2005, I was able to come back to Wausau. And so the only bad thing that had happened to me was that night there was a huge bomb, and so my right eardrum had actually ruptured by being so close to that bomb. But I was able to leave the country unscathed. So I came back to Wausau, I went back to college, and us war veterans, we come back with lots of mental garbage. I saw a lot, I did a lot of things that haunted me when you try to go to sleep. You have all these memories that come back to you. And so I came back to college, I was a changed person. You see, when I was in Iraq, we were able to make a difference in the lives of young people. If you were to ask me, yeah, what was your purpose of going to Iraq? My reasons would be, we were trying to secure a better future for the children of Iraq. And so I just love the little children of this world. And so that was the good thing that I did in Iraq. But coming back to Wausau, I still wanted to work with young people. And so I thought that being a teacher would be the best position for me to continue to impact young lives. And that's the reason why in 2008, I ended up graduating with my teaching degree. In 2008, I was hired to become a 6th grade social studies here at the wonderful DC Everett School District. And my life was good. My family started to grow. And I completely forgot about God because I had made that promise to Him that I was going to do something great for Him. And so in 2015, 10 years later, God came knocking on my door and He said, yeah, remember 10 years ago, you told me that you were going to do something great for me. And I had completely ran away from God. And so then I said, okay, God, yes, I want to keep that promise, even though it's been 10 years. And so then I said, God, what is it that you want me to do to make this community better? And one day while I was teaching in my classroom, it dawned on me, in my classroom, I was teaching white kids, Hmong kids, black kids, Hispanic kids. All kids could be together in one classroom. But yet, when I was going to church, there were white churches for white people, there were Hmong churches for Hmong people, but yet Jesus Christ is the epitome of love. And if Jesus Christ represents love, then the color of our skin should not determine where we go to church. And so then God said, yeah, look at your classroom. This is how a church can be. All colors can gather together under one building. And so in 2016, January of that year, I started the Cross, a multi-ethnic, non-denominational church. And after that time, I started to get out in the community. I really wanted to know, if I want to make Wausau a better place, especially from a church, what are the needs of the community? So I started to go under the bridges. I started to meet homeless people. I started to meet addicts who have addictions to alcohol and drugs. I started to go into the prison, the jail, to do Bible studies with the inmates. And I realized that a lot of these inmates that are getting out of the jail, when they get out, they don't have any resource to help them. Some of these people have said, Pastor Yauo, when I get out of jail, I will have no home. The only thing that I will have are the clothes on my back. How is it that the church can help? And so it's because of this that I decided that in a church, we have to be helping those that are going to be needing our help. We have to think outside the box. How is it that we can help these people? And so the church started to grow. And so 3 years later, we're renting the YWCA, and we are serving a marginalized population. But the really cool thing about the Cross is we are the most ethnically diverse church in this entire community. Half of us are Hmong, half of them are Caucasians, but we have blacks, we have Native Americans, we have Filipinos that are coming to the church. You see, this is what it really means to be a community church. All people coming together. It doesn't matter your skin color, it doesn't matter your background, it doesn't matter what you have done in the past, but we can all come and gather together. And so we love to be able to help all of these people. And so this is related to the theme for this year. Our theme for the Hmong New Year this year is converging communities and embracing diversity. So when I think about the first half of this theme, about being a converging community, to me, this means that we're all coming together as an entire city to help each other, regardless if you're black, you're white, you're a Hmong, or whatever your skin color is. We all must be able to work together as one community. The color of your skin should not matter, because in a community, all people matter, regardless of how we look on the outside. Yes, many of us may be Hmong, but that should not limit our engagement to just the Hmong community. As Hmong, we must be willing to be an active part of this community to make it a better place for all of our neighbors, for all of our families, and especially our children. When we see the poor, we help them. We shouldn't just help the poor that are Hmong, but we help all people, because all people need help once in a while. It doesn't matter your skin color. The more that we're coming together, converging as a community, working together, talking together, the more that we find out that we're a lot more in common than we think that we are different. We will feel that we're a part of this community when we don't let our skin color divide us. The second half of this year's theme is about embracing diversity. As a younger generation, we must never forget that we are still Hmong. We need to be proud of who we are, because being Hmong is special. We must never forget our Hmong language, our history, and our culture. These are the things that make us uniquely Hmong. It's because we are Hmong that we have made Central Wisconsin a much more beautiful and vibrant community. My parting thoughts for us today is that it's important for all of us to embrace our identity, but at the same time, we need to embrace and have the love of differences in this beautiful community that we call Central Wisconsin. Thank you so much for this time.